many of us, not to be crass, but even you think about centuries ago when black folks were branded as livestock, you know, we're at a place now in our society where, whether that be black genius or black talent or black ingenuity, needs to be branded.
Right.
Any business needs to be branded. So for a long time, I called myself being in business, but I was in business.
Right,
you know, I was
right.
just... sculptors as well.
Right, right.
But some people have that aesthetic where they want three-dimensional work or they create three-dimensional work.
Right, right. Okay. All right. So years ago, you put a festival on called the Community Arts and Funk Festival.
All right.
So explain a little bit about that. And off camera, you and I were talking about some other festivals and things. So explain that to the audience.
Well, what inspired the Community Arts and Funk Festival was what was one time called, it was the Milwaukee Inner City Arts Council at the time for a number of years had a celebration of community arts festival.
Okay.
That they put on for a number of years at the Marcus Center for the Performing Arts Pavilion. And so that was basically, that was Milwaukee's Black Art Festival for years. And so I was able to participate in that festival in the final years of its existence. I believe that might have been 94 through maybe 98, 99, I think.
Really? It's only 4 to 5 years. Huh?
Well, that was the only times I participated. Right. After that time, the Milwaukee Inner City Arts Council became defunct and was no longer a functioning organization in the city. But that being said, that festival was always very fun to participate in. And so when I had the opportunity, after participating in other festivals around the country as a vending artist, you know, I said, well, it might be time to, you know, create another Black Art Festival for Milwaukee to have. So what inspired that was me thinking I was creating a cultural arts event planning company, when really what I was doing was events that nonprofits would typically put on.
Right, right.
But all that being said, I learned quite a bit about fundraising, sponsorship acquisition and development, balancing a budget, working with subcontractors, working with volunteers. So all of the dynamics that I had seen from behind the scenes participating in other festivals, it gave me an opportunity to put something together to contribute here in Milwaukee. So, and my love of funk music, you know, Parliament Funkadelic, Rick James, Cameo, you know, James Brown, anything of that era, I thought it would be great to have something that would be a Black Arts Festival but appealing to everybody. Without saying Black Art Festival.
Right, right.
And we already know funk music outside of hip hop is international.
Right, right.
You know, everybody knows when they hear it, it's about a good time. You rarely hear of anything negative happening as far as funk music is concerned, outside of, you know, maybe, you know, I guess maybe too much of a party atmosphere for some, but nevertheless, hip-hop has gotten a bad name because of some of the negativity and criminality that's been associated with it.
Right, right.
So a lot of that as far as community arts, celebrating the arts of the community, and then also showcasing funk bands from Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago, Minneapolis, any regional area of the upper Midwest.
Okay.
So that was the concept. That's what inspired it. And developing it, it was well received by people who wanted to contribute towards it. It was great to have Greenwood Park as a participating entity at that time, and so it was a costly learning experience, but it was still gratifying to be able to have what became a whisper of an idea in mind, and then walking it through and seeing it come into fruition.
Okay.
So it's still alive and well in the cyber world of algorithms, and hopefully in the next couple of years may aspire to doing another festival.
Okay.
All in its own. In the last few years, have partnered with the Washington Park Bandshell Committee of the Washington Park partners themselves, and so they've partnered with me where I've done live art events on Wednesday evenings in the end of the summer under the banner name of Community Arts and Funk Festival.
Okay.
So it's still alive, but right now it's just in a little bit of a holding pattern.
Right. So give us background on MyAd and then Brad Art Studios. So you mentioned MyAd earlier.
Yeah, MyAd, just where I basically received my first degree, my bachelor's degree in fine art. So Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. It started off as the Layton School of Art a number of years ago.
Right.
But yeah, I was one of probably 8 or 9 black students in the school at the time when I attended. Yeah.
What year was this again?
This was the years 1990 to 1993. And so there was not a large black student population there, which now it's increased quite a bit.
Right.
You know.
Now, what is your involvement now with MyAd?
Well, I'm a full professor.
Okay.
Been there. This is my 5th year teaching there. But I'd also had previously about 11, 12 years experience teaching at other institutions.
Okay.
So it's been a great experience. It's kind of like a welcome back Cotter experience.
Right.
You're walking the halls of where you once were a student and now you're a professor there. So the colleagues are great to work with. The administration, especially in the wake of the George Floyd protests, have really gone to great lengths to hire more faculty of color. Mm-hmm. They're definitely recruiting to student demographics of color, whether that be black, Latino, Asian, what have you. So, I commend them for their efforts in that way.
Right.
And then also, too, before I started teaching there, as an alum, they were always very supportive. So even with the festival, the MyAd Alumni Association provided student volunteers and alum volunteers for the festival. Their website has a pretty broad range of viewership, so they would promote the festival on their website. They had a booth promoting some of their programs there at the college at the festival. So they were always very supportive as an entity, even inviting me back as a visiting artist for a number of different years in the past. So even before I ever started teaching there, they always showed themselves to be supportive of community initiatives involving the arts.
Right, and supportive of you, it sounds like.
Well, definitely supportive of me.
Yeah.
And, even having the opportunity to teach there, there were, the provost at the time was a former professor of mine from when I attended.
Okay.
And one of the department chairs was a former peer that I attended with, and so even then, 30 years later, having them in positions of, influence,
right.
I think in a lot of ways helped usher me in to that opportunity teaching there.
Okay, all right.
Greenwood Park Gallery and Framing, open for all of your art needs. Located at 4233 West Fond du Lac Avenue, open Mondays through Fridays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now featuring African American and contemporary artwork for local, national, and international artists. Your local shop for masks and statuettes, mud cloths, royal cloths, and salt lamps. Call 414-444-5166 or follow their Facebook. Greenwood Park Gallery and Framing, 4233 West Fond du Lac Avenue.
All right, Brad. So, explain to us in regards to what Bernard Art Studio is.
Bernard Art Studio. That's my LLC. That's basically my entity as a working artist. Whether people want to purchase already created works that I've made, paintings or drawings, whether they want to hire me for artistic services as far as portraiture or murals, or if they're interested in any kind of arts education workshops, working with youth, adults, or any potentially marginalized population. So that's pretty much Bernard Art Studio in a nutshell, which is different than Brad Anthony Bernard, strictly the artist.
Okay.
Okay. So Bernard Art Studio, like I said, is that LLC entity that is arts products, art services.
Okay.
And that's probably my best way of explaining it.
Right. Now explain to the audience why is it important to brand yourself, and why is it important to get an LLC? Explain that to artists.
Well, I think for so many of us, not to be crass, but even you think about centuries ago when black folks were branded as livestock, we're at a place now in our society where whether that be black genius or black talent or black ingenuity needs to be branded.
Right. Any
business needs to be branded. So for a long time, I called myself being in business, but I was in business. I was just kind of getting by and never really legitimizing things the way I needed to. And so, I think, especially being an educator, when you get caught up in being an educator, you're used to that payroll check. Mm-hmm. And so any extra side money you make on the side becomes that side hustle.
Okay.
That was a mistake of mentality on my part, because it should not have been a side hustle. Right. It should have been a small business.
Right.
And so only in recent years, upon returning back to Milwaukee, I decided to really set up my business structure.
Okay.
And so doing the LLC, getting registered with the state of Wisconsin as a functioning black-owned business, and then also understanding the dynamics of the tax code. Right. And knowing that, I can write things off and write them off to the business.
Right.
And for so many years, I was just neglecting myself in that aspect because I was not taking the time to structure my business.
Okay.
And so now that the business is structured and now that I'm incorporated, now I can put myself in position to pursue different kinds of opportunities and then also be taken a little bit more serious. So it's kind of a double-edged thing. In one aspect, I think artists of color either need to be seriously in business and understand how making that first impression is oftentimes what can create other opportunities down the road. Right. But then also, as far as education, having the degree for those who need to feel like there needs to be some other form of legitimizing.
Right. You
know what I mean? Oftentimes, we as black folks, there needs to be something else, some other credential,
right,
to legitimize.
Right.
Because if you don't have a tax ID number, and if you don't have a degree, well, then people are going to perceive you as just trying to hustle.
Right.
But see, when people see you got a degree and they see that you registered with the state, oh, this is legitimate. This is someone we can depend on. And even with doing the festival, having the endorsement of Mount Mary University at the time, the institution I taught at then, and then also having the endorsement of the Marcus Center for the Performing Arts. Mm-hmm. So when you have two major institutions that are typically affiliated with what might be white monies, right?
Right.
Backing up a young black artist in the community, but the affiliation with the institution as a professor is what allowed me to be able to walk into those corridors.
Right.
Because had I not had the degree and had I not had the affiliation, I probably would have not been as received as well as I had been.
Right.
And then also being within those institutions, then there's other people in positions of influence who can endorse, speak on your behalf.
Right.
And so that's where the relationship building became so important, as well as the networking.
Right. So to really sum it up, basically you're just saying, you just got to get your stuff together.
Yeah,
you got to be on point with things,
right.
So you can grow and move forward.
Right.
Now you mentioned in this last question about coming back to Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. So explain to us. You left. Where did you go? You moved.
Well, I've had a couple bouts with Mississippi. So I left originally in 2000 to pursue graduate school. in Mississippi, and then I left Mississippi in '07. Lived in Indiana for a year, and then moved back to Milwaukee in '08. That's where I taught at Mount Mary for 6.5 years. And then I resigned from Mount Mary to pursue another opportunity, which was to teach at the HBCU back down in Mississippi. So I returned back to Mississippi for a second time and taught there for about 4 years. And teaching in Clarksdale, Mississippi was almost like teaching in a third world country in some aspects.
Why is that?
Clarksdale is the home of the blues, okay? And blues is still a main tourist staple of the state of Mississippi as well as the city of Clarksdale. But it's been co-opted. So many of the black blues musicians who are not self-managed are being exploited by individuals other than themselves, right? And so, but all that being said, the culture as far as poverty and the lack of education and public education, dealing with college students that might be on a 7th or 8th grade reading level. So, when you're dealing with poverty, miseducation, crime, dysfunction, family-wise, which can be everywhere, but in a smaller, rural town in Mississippi, it can be kind of disheartening. So there were some bright moments there, teaching in Mississippi. I was recognized through my institution for a Teaching Excellence Award, and I was able to present some of my research as an artist and musician to the Mississippi Arts Commission, and there were some other organizations that were like acknowledging educators in the area, and so. That all being said, I think I fulfilled my mission there. I think I had the impact I needed to have at that time. But then, upon coming back to Milwaukee, I was looking for an opportunity to teach a summer workshop. And so I started putting my feelers out with different entities and people and organizations that I knew of when I had lived here. I reached out to Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. They didn't have any summer classes available, but they said there may be an opportunity for me to teach part-time. I said, well, I need something full-time. So they said, well, we do have an interim full-time possibility. That is just a guaranteed 1-year contract, but they couldn't guarantee anything after 1 year. And so I said, okay, well, let me go on and apply for that. And then at the time, I also had applied for a position at Carroll University in Waukesha. And as fate would have it, both places hired me to work part-time. And so I was on board to teach part-time at MIAD, teach part-time at Waukesha College. Waukesha College. And what ended up happening was a full-time position, interim, came up at MIAD. So I rolled the dice. I took that position for an interim full-time for 1-year appointment. And as fate would have it, they did a search for a painting and drawing full-time professor. And so then I applied for that. It was between myself and maybe 4 or 5 other colleagues. And so then I was able to secure that position then. So that's what brought me back to Milwaukee and accepting that position to teach there.
So you were the chosen one, huh?
Fully qualified, bona fide.
Right.
So and I think too. As we might have both had folks that said you got to be twice as good when you walk in the door.
Yes.
And so, I don't think I was an affirmative action, token. And I think for whatever I had to offer, they were able to recognize. And then, like I said, my experience with MIAD when I went there as a student, I never felt neglected, ostracized, singled out. None of that, nothing negative. But then also I had been socialized in a way coming out of my household, even though I might have been raised in a predominantly white neighborhood, it was a southern black household. And uncompromising, and not trying to be like the Jones.
The Artist Connection podcast was generated from many conversations with local artists around the lack of opportunity to showcase their talent. Here at Greenwood Park Gallery and Framing, we recognize our local talent and strive to connect artists with the community. Please enjoy this opportunity to hear from local artists and learn more about what inspires their work.
Greenwood Park Gallery and Framing specializes in custom framing, printing on canvas, and selling contemporary and African American art, all housed in our 3,000 square foot art gallery. We are centrally located in Milwaukee at 4233 West Fond du Lac Avenue. We recognize local artists and strive to connect local talent with the community. We're asking for your support. Contact us to find out how you can help sponsor the work we're doing to highlight local artists in our community.